For a team that's just qualified for the Champions League, Newcastle United are having one of the worst transfer windows that we've seen for a while. They can't attract anyone. And for the third time this summer, Manchester United have dunked on them, have taken another one of their targets, Cunha and Mbeumo. And now Benjamin Šeško has chosen to join Manchester over Newcastle. This summer has been a huge reality check for that club. And I kind of feel bad for Newcastle because I remember when the Saudi owners came in, everybody was excited. Newcastle fans were crying in the streets of that city. They were walking around in turbans. It was looking like Riyadh in Newcastle. We thought the future was going to be bright for them. And things have been a lot better since they got taken over by the Saudis, right? They've qualified for the Champions League. This is now the second time. Last season, they won their first trophy in 70 years. And we all thought this summer they were going to kick on, spend money, and build on the team that they have. But everything has gone the complete opposite way. They've been getting rejected left and right. And just when you think things could not get bad enough, it gets worse. Alexander Isak, one of the best strikers in the world, Newcastle United's best player, is now trying to force a move to Liverpool, a direct competitor, a team that Newcastle are trying to be like. They are having a nightmare this summer. They basically qualified for the Champions League for no reason, because the only signings that they've made so far was Alanga from Forest and Aaron Ramsdale on loan. You didn't need to make the Champions League to get those two players. I think Newcastle United, if they don't get their stuff together very quickly, they might fall off. And Isak wanting to leave might not be the only player that ends up going. Like, you might see Bruno Guimaraes, Sandro Tonali, Livramento. There might be domino effects to having a shit window like what they're having right now. But look, we'll talk about Newcastle a little bit more later on in the video, because Šeško choosing Manchester United does have some domino effects for Liverpool's chances of getting Isak. But we got to talk about United, Manchester I'm talking about, because Ineos deserve a little bit of credit. Coming off of one of their worst seasons in club history, finishing 15th, losing to Tottenham in a Europa League final. It wasn't looking good for Manchester United at the end of last season. I didn't think they were going to be able to attract certain caliber of players, and they haven't gotten, I'd say, the best of what's available on the market. But I think with the business that they've done so far, revamping their attack, it's been good so far. And now we're seeing them get linked to Carlos Baleba, the midfielder from Brighton. They're also being linked to Donnarumma. United might be ending this window having a completely different starting 11. And when I look at a player like Šeško, I think this is a good signing because he's better than Rasmus Højlund. And even though a lot of people think that Šeško is shit and he's not going to do well, I actually like his profile, right? If you look at the physical attributes, he's 6'5". He's rapid. He has a great, he's a great aerial threat, and his shot power is amazing. All that he needs is a manager that's going to be able to help him develop a little bit more in the final third with being a lot more clinical, right? Šeško is not a world-class striker. He's not a player that's going to come into Manchester United and be competing for the Golden Boot. But I view him as a player that has a lot of potential. And when I look at them signing Bryan Mbeumo, they've also brought in Cunha, right? You add Amad Diallo, who's going to be out there. Bruno Fernandes as well, right? You look at Patrick Dorgu at left wing back. Kobe Mainoo in that midfield. United are having a solid core, if you want to be honest. And they should be a lot better than what they were this past season. Manchester United struggled with creating chances and with scoring goals. Now that you have Cunha and Mbeumo, Šeško, and these other guys here, it should look a lot better in the final third. Now, I do think that they made a mistake not selling Bruno Fernandes when Al Hilal were offering them like over $100 million. They could have used that money to completely rebuild their team. But I like what they're doing with their attack. Šeško is better than Rasmus Højlund. And I think he ends up bagging about 12 to 15 goals in the Premier League next season. I'm not down on this player like how a lot of people are. And what's crazy is that Šeško's been linked with a lot of teams in the Prem. Man was linked to Arsenal because that's where it looked like he was going to be going at one point. They end up signing Victor Gyökeres. And if you think about it, it seems like all the teams in the Prem that needed a striker went out there this summer and got one. Like I said, Arsenal got Gyökeres. Chelsea got Liam Delap, João Pedro. Liverpool, they got Ekitike, and they might go get Isak. Who knows? Now that Šeško is not going to Newcastle, that might mess that deal up. But United, they needed a striker. They went out there. They got Šeško. I think it's a decent signing. The money is a bit much, right? I think it is a little bit of an overpay. But Leipzig, this is a kind of around the money that they wanted. And with Newcastle coming in, mind you, he picked Manchester United, even though Newcastle put more money on the table for Leipzig, and Newcastle also offered Šeško more money in terms of wages than what Manchester United did. United, as much as we like to banter them, they still have pull. No European football next season. Ruben Amorim's future isn't even certain, right? He might get sacked by Christmas. And yet, players are still picking to go there over teams that have qualified for the Champions League. Like I said, Newcastle United have had a major reality check this summer. Mbeumo, Cunha, Šeško, João Pedro, Ekitike, Liam Delap, Dean Howson, James Trafford, the keeper that went to Man City. That's just to name a few. I'm pretty sure that I'm forgetting about other players as well. They are having an awful summer window. And with Šeško ending up at Manchester United, I wonder what happens with Isak. Because if I'm Newcastle, there's no way in hell I'm selling Alexander Isak after all these rejections. I would tell him he can get his summer move next year. He's going to have to wait until 2026. Because I don't think Newcastle can go out there and get anyone else. Like, they're going to have to massively downgrade if they sell Isak. You're going to have to go get fucking like Nicholas Jackson or maybe Ollie Watkins, right? There's no way if I am Newcastle, Isak is going anywhere. I would tell him you have to wait one more year because I think Isak has left Newcastle in a pretty shit predicament, right? Like when he requested his transfer, this is after everyone has already been signed. So they had to go and look after a guy like Šeško, who I don't even think was one of their main targets. But they got desperate, which is why they were willing to pay so much money to get him, because they know that Isak wants to leave. But now that Šeško's chosen Manchester United, Newcastle, they're in a very tricky position here. So let's see the dominoes that falls after this move. But back to Manchester United, I want to ask you guys a question. Now that they've got Šeško as their striker, looking at the other midfield target that they have in Baleba and possibly bringing in Donnarumma, where do you guys think this United team would finish? Because they are in for Baleba, and we know that Donnarumma is leaving PSG because they've just signed that goalkeeper from Lille. And I think Donnarumma only has a year left on his contract, so PSG are going to definitely want to sell him this summer, and they've already bought his replacement. United need a goalkeeper. Onana is shit. So Donnarumma could be a possibility for them. It could be a market opportunity. Baleba, we know that they want him. That's been reported by all the Tier 1 journalists. So this team right here could end up competing for, I'd say, top 4. On paper, that's what they should be doing at least. But yeah, like I said, they've revamped their attack. Manchester United, they're having a decent summer window here. Again, they still need a midfielder. They still need a goalkeeper. So let's see how the rest of the window goes for them. but they are showing some ambition, right? This is why they had to sack the lady that was making the lunches. This is why the receptionist got laid off. This is why the guy that was doing laundry at Old Trafford had to get fired, was for them to be able to bring in some new attackers. But nah, I need you guys to get in the comment section, right? Let me know what you think about Šeško joining Manchester United. Again, I don't think he's the best player, but I do like his profile. I think he has potential. There is things that can be worked with. Look at what Ruben Amorim did with Gyökeres, right? Nobody knew who Gyökeres was before he ended up at Sporting. Ruben Amorim turned Gyökeres into a player that bagged 50 goals a season. Maybe he can do the same thing at Manchester. Look, I know that United, they do have a history of killing players' careers. But if you're a player, I think going to Manchester United is a lot more attractive than going to Newcastle. United, despite how shit they've been on the pitch, they're still one of the biggest clubs in the world. Nobody can deny that. They still have more pull than teams that are in the Champions League, right? Which is crazy, considering that Newcastle, everything looked like it was going to be on the up for them this summer. But like I said, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on those post notifications, and let me know what you think about Šeško joining Manchester United.